My child, there are moments so small they slip right past you. A quick glance at my word, a soft whisper in your heart, a thought saying later another time, I am just too busy right now. Yet in those fragile moments, your soul silently shifts direction without you even realizing it. You think you have not rejected me, only delayed, only taken a single step back, only waiting so that later you might have more time, more focus, more strength to seek me. But while you call it postponement in the spiritual world, a real movement has already begun. A tiny gap opens between you and me. The silence stretches longer than usual. A piece of ground in your mind is no longer filled by my presence. And in that empty space, the enemy quietly slips in like an invader, stepping softly through abandoned land. Not loud, never hurried, just patiently, claiming what is yours. Every inch of your heart with each delay. The enemy takes ground in your mind, while I stand at the door, never forcing my way and never abandoning you. Because I know that with one single moment of your return, everything can be made new again. I do not threaten you, but I do not hide the truth. That just a little longer you think is harmless is where the first chains of bondage bind your soul. And as you get used to making me wait outside, you also get used to letting darkness speak inside you without calling it what it is. You cannot see the twisting paths your thoughts take. But I see every hidden step clearly when you delay your response to me. You often tell yourself that you still believe, still belong to me, and still love me. But now you are not free, ready, or focused. You assume that this state is neutral and harmless, but your soul is never in a neutral zone. It either opens up to me or slowly gives up space to another voice. The enemy does not always use obvious temptations. Often he simply places a very reasonable thought in your mind. You need to rest first. You are too tired to pray. You will seek God when life gets a little easier. Those whispers do not destroy your faith instantly, but they slow you down, widening the gap between my call and your answer during those dry seasons. Anxiety starts to root, comparison takes hold, a quiet sense of guilt, regret, or selfishness starts to grow. And you think it is just a mood, your personality, or a passing phase. I do not stand far off condemning you. I stand at the door of your heart and knock gently, never breaking in, never forcing my way, waiting to see if you still recognize my knock. I wait not because I lack power, but because I respect your soul. I will never force your will. I want my love to awaken a true desire for freedom within you. Looking back at the days behind you, you will see times when you answered me almost instantly. One simple nudge and you opened scripture. A gentle stirring and you whispered a prayer. A burden hit and you brought it straight to me. Those were the moments that saved you from traps you never even saw coming. But times of delay start quietly. Today you might skim through my word just to get it done. Tomorrow you promise yourself you will pray more tonight. The next day you let yourself drift through endless screens, and in the days that follow, your heart grows heavy without you knowing why. I see that weight and do not judge you. You are not trying to resist me, you just do not see the impact of these small choices. Every time you say later to me, you say yes to something else, and that thing slowly grows to take first place in your heart. I do not keep a record of your delays, but I do see your fire slowly fading. I hear the confusion in your mind when my voice gets lost in all the noise around you. Yet I do not run from your chaos. I step right into it like a soft light through thick curtains, gentle but steady. You often think that to return to me, you need some massive emotional breakthrough, hours of prayer or absolute perfection, as if you have to make up for all the times you delayed. But I do not expect you to climb a mountain of faith overnight. I only ask for one small step right now. A simple whisper, Lord, I know I kept you waiting, spoken from the heart, is worth more than 100 massive promises you cannot keep. One quiet moment where you shut out the noise is more powerful than 1,000 hours spent trying to fix yourself. When you return, you will see I am not waiting with a book of judgment, but with open arms, ready to wash the dust of the road from your soul. What the enemy takes through quiet, gradual steps, I can restore in an instant. Just open your heart and let me in. But I am not looking for a performance. I just want your honesty. Owning up to your delays, admitting other things took my place, and wanting to break the cycle. That is where freedom starts. Not when you finally become perfect, but when you find the courage to face the habit of putting things off in your heart. My child, you are not weak just because you need time to come back. You are weak when you lose the desire to return at all. I never blame you for the moments you feel exhausted, lost, or overwhelmed by pressure. I only ask that you do not let those struggles pull you away from the source of life. Every time you tell me honestly, I am tired but I still want to be close, you shatter a piece of the enemy's plans for you. Whenever you respond to my gentle whisper, even with a quick prayer or a simple glance toward heaven, with that small act of obedience, you reclaim every inch of the mental ground the enemy thought they had conquered. I am incredibly patient with this journey. I do not expect you to instantly return to how you first believed, but I will never stop calling you to take just one more step. Not so you can prove how strong you are, but so you can feel that deep peace again. You do not need a better version of yourself. You just need a fresh connection with me. Real change will flow naturally from that, like flowers blooming in spring. So my child, even in this very moment, I am standing right at the doorway of your heart. I am not banging loudly or rushing you, but I will not leave. Do not ignore your hesitation anymore. See it for what it really is, a quiet corner where the enemy wants to make a home, but also a space I deeply long to transform back into a meeting place for us. You cannot build a habit of putting me off and still expect your heart to hear my voice. Much like a room shut tight for too long starts to smell of dust and dampness. In the same way, a soul closed off from my word will slowly grow heavy and burdened. But if you just crack the door open, light will start to change the room. I will not ask why you made me wait this long. I only ask this one thing today. Right now, will you let me take another step into your heart? If you answer even with a tiny prayer, you will be amazed to see I never actually left. I am still waiting for the response you delayed, but I never forgot. My child. You often tell yourself that you have not turned away, that you just need time to think, to get organized, and to ready your heart before you reply. You call it taking things slow, trying to be careful and serious with me. But while you sit and think, other voices are already taking the place meant for me. Hesitation is not just careful thinking, it is actually opening the door for other voices to crowd out my own. Because your soul can never truly stand still in neutral territory. When you push my voice to the back of your mind, you pull another voice straight to the front. Even if you do not recognize it, fear might be telling you to figure everything out before you dare to trust. Or it could be weariness tempting you to run to mindless distractions instead of resting in quiet prayer with me. Maybe it is your own ego whispering that you must secure your plans first and leave me for last. None of those thoughts happen by accident. They gain strength every time you walk away, leaving my word outside like a guest who arrived early but is left standing on the porch. Pay attention to how you treat the other invites in your life, and you will see where your soul is leaning. It is like ignoring your father's letter while texting your friends back in seconds. You might be giving top priority to the messages that feed your mind hour after hour. You claim you do not mean to ignore me, that you are just not in the mood, but actually you are always reacting. You respond to notifications on your screen, to constant comparisons, to the urge to work without resting, and to the endless search for approval. Every time you say yes to those distractions instead of saying yes to me, you train your heart to react instantly to the world but slowly to the things of the Spirit. Just as it is written, some people come and listen, saying beautiful things with their mouths while their hearts run after selfish desires. That is not just an ancient story, it is a mirror for our spiritual life today. When you give your best energy to the world and only offer me your exhausted leftover thoughts at the very end of your day, you start believing that I am just an option rather than your actual source of life. Slowly, my voice starts to lose its power over you. Not because my word is weak, but because you have trained your heart to listen to louder voices. My child. I do not blame you for carrying so many worries. I see your daily struggles, and I understand everything you are going through right now. I am not asking you to walk away from your life just to hear me speak, but simply to change which voice you answer first. When you respond to my gentle nudges the moment you feel them, you are placing an invisible boundary in your day. It shows that I am your priority. It is a tiny step, but it breaks the habit of hesitation. It is like a shaft of light breaking through a long sealed ceiling. When you stop amidst the chaos and whisper, "Lord, I hear you calling me," you instantly reconnect your heart to its true life source, leaving no room for the enemy to fill that silence with doubt. But every time you delay coming back to me, you open the door for other negative thoughts to make their case in your mind. They are not loud. Instead, they sound logical, whispering that prayer can wait until you are less busy and that you must focus on your stress right now. Over time, you get so used to this way of thinking that you do not even realize who is guiding your thoughts. I am sharing this truth not to make you feel guilty, but to help you see the spiritual warfare happening inside your heart. In spiritual warfare, procrastination is a strategic trap, not an accident. The enemy uses delay to widen the gap between my call and your answer, using that space to breed doubt, fatigue, and shame. It whispers memories of your past failures and broken promises, trying to make you too ashamed to seek my face again. It makes prayer feel boring, trying to convince you that spending time with me is pointless, while scrolling on your phone feels like a better use of time. It masks your hesitation as wise caution, when in reality it is just delaying tactics draining the fire from your soul. I am not telling you to rush. I want you to see that hearing my voice today is a gift, not a burden. Every single time you choose to answer me, even when you do not feel ready, you win back the spiritual ground that hesitation stole from your soul. In those seemingly tiny moments of obedience, my presence will become so much clearer to you. Not because I have moved closer, but because you stopped letting other noises crowd me out. My dear child, if this message speaks to you today, do not fall into despair or feel condemned. I want you to realize that I am still standing right at the door of your heart. I am not turning away, closing the book, or telling you that it is too late. The fact that you recognize this hesitation proves your heart is still soft and you can still hear my voice. I am not asking you to rewrite your past. Just choose a new direction right now instead of pushing your promises off to tomorrow once again. You can talk to me this very second with a simple prayer: Lord, I do not want to wait anymore. Even if I do not know my next step, I want to answer you first. That simple prayer is a powerful step back to me, realigning your entire inner life. From there, I will show you how to manage your time, your energy, and your focus. Not through guilt or force, but with gentle light, showing you which voices to tune out and which to trust. You do not have to fight this battle against hesitation alone. I am walking right beside you. If you are ready to let my voice be the very first one you answer, my dear child, the enemy does not always attack like a massive storm. He will not pound on your door or cause obvious chaos to warn you. Instead, he slips in quietly like a draft through a cracked window, so subtle that you do not even think to stand up and shut it. He does not ask you to reject me outright. He only wants you to get comfortable saying not right now. To delay your response just this once, then again, until that habit builds an invisible wall between us. In the beginning, your soul is sensitive. You hear my whispers while walking during quiet moments or when you first wake up. But because you say later, that sensitivity begins to slip away. The devil does not conquer with a sudden storm. He takes your mind inch by inch through tiny, seemingly harmless compromises. And slowly, darkness sets up camp in your heart. It never asks for permission. It simply waits for your silence. Because your silence is a sign that you are comfortable making me wait. Look back at the times you drifted away from me. You will see that no massive storm tore down your wall of faith. It was not some loud rejection or a deliberate act of rebellion. Just a quiet chain of moments when you ignored my whisper to return. Each time your spirit grew a little more numb, like someone who once loved the crisp smell of morning air, but slowly gets used to the city smoke and dust. The enemy does not celebrate when you fall into a major sin. He rejoices when you think you are doing fine even though you stop answering me. He knows a soul does not lose its light in one sharp blow, but by sitting under dim lamps for so long that you forget how bright the real sun actually is. I see you trying to soothe yourself, whispering, just for today, just this once. Those tiny, careless moments are the exact keys the enemy uses to slowly unlock every room of your mind. Not with force, but with a toxic, patient persistence. Just like a person living in a cold, damp basement will shield their eyes and shrink from the sunlight when the door opens. Your soul begins to shrink from my presence after weeks of putting me off. But this fading never happens overnight. It starts when you tell yourself that delayed obedience is fine, or that a half-hearted prayer does not matter. That skipping one tired morning is harmless. You still believe you are resting safe in my arms, but you have already drifted. One step back, then another, until I feel miles away, even though I never moved. This is the exact moment the enemy waits for. He does not strike when you feel lost, but when you blindly believe you are still close. He has no need for heavy blows. He only needs to let your own mind build excuses for putting me off. And over time, those excuses become a permanent home for doubt in your heart. I do not condemn you, but I refuse to let you sleep in this illusion. Hesitation is never just a harmless phase. It is a slow path that makes you deaf to my voice, my child. I remember when your soul stirred with my spirit because you answered me the moment I called. When a single touch from me would instantly open your heart. Your spirit was so alive back then, you did not wait for the right mood, convenient timing, or perfect circumstances. Back then, the enemy had no foothold in you because he could not wedge his way between my voice and your response. But when you began to live with that empty silence, he moved in and claimed it like someone taking over abandoned land, asking permission from nobody. I saw those tiny cracks forming in your soul early on, not to scold you, but to heal you. I called those dangers out by name, not to humiliate you, but to rescue you from traps you could not see. Do not wait for a complete collapse to realize you stopped listening. A fall is just the final step of a silent daily drift. I do not wait until your life falls apart to speak to you. I whisper the moment you start to drift because I refuse to let the enemy steal even one more inch of your thoughts. My child, waking up does not take a violent shake. It starts when you simply open your mouth and say, Lord, I hear you. That honest, simple confession instantly makes the enemy tremble because it shatters the chain of hesitation he spent weeks building. I do not wait for you to be flawless before calling you home. I call you while you are still struggling, confused, and hesitant. A weak soul that answers is far stronger than a resolved soul that delays. I am standing at the door of your heart, not from a place of weakness, but because true power sparks when you willingly open up. The enemy can never break in when I am with you, but he will constantly try to convince you to keep it closed. And every time you listen, he takes another step closer. I will never force you. Real love never does. I stand here gentle and steady because I know that a single word from you brings the light back and scatters the dark. I do not leave you when you are silent. I do not lock my heart just because you are slow to answer. I do not walk away when you do not answer immediately. I stay close like a watchman, keeping the door open through a cold, rainy night. Not out of weakness, but because he knows that anyone lost in the storm needs to see a clear path home. I will never force you to call out to me. I simply keep this space open so you know you always have a sanctuary. Even if you wander off, I do not erase your name when you turn away. I hold on to it the way someone protects a seed through winter, knowing that spring will eventually return. My love is not the kind that demands an instant answer. It knows how to wait, how to endure, and how to listen when you cannot find the words. I am not waiting to judge you, I am waiting to embrace you. Because if I walked away just because you went quiet, my mercy would not be love. It would only be a cold transaction. Think of the loving father in that parable you know so well. The son walked away chasing empty desires in a distant land, wasting everything he had. The father didn't chase him down, shout in anger, or send letters of blame, but he never closed the door. He stood at the threshold, watching the horizon, not counting the long days, but keeping the pathway clear. So when returning footsteps finally echoed, the way home would be clear. I am the same with you. I will never force you to kneel nor lock your life to make you return. I keep the gateway wide open. Even if you lack the courage to turn around, I know a heart doesn't turn to stone overnight. So I do not use a whip. I offer my presence. I do not build fences, I build hope. Like the father in Luke chapter 15 standing at the door, I don't run when you drift out of sight. I wait because I know you'll find your way home, not driven by fear, but drawn by the memory of open arms. I understand your exhaustion. I know there are mornings when you wake up and just cannot bring yourself to pray. Not out of anger or hate, but because you feel too unworthy to even speak to me. You assume I'm furious, that I am tired of your constant failures, or that I only hear the strong. But my child's strength is not about never falling down. It is the soul that knows how to return. I do not focus on how many times you stumble. I look at every single time you return. I don't track your silent days to judge you. I count every tiny step you take toward me, even if it is just a breath, a glance, or a whisper. Please don't walk away. I know your distance didn't start with rebellion, but with unhealed exhaustion. And so I keep waiting like an oil lamp in the dark, never blaming the one who fell asleep, but shining patiently so they know home is waiting. My beloved child, don't confuse this waiting with indifference. I am not silent because I do not care. I am still because I see the deep value of the journey you are taking. I know true faith never grows through force, but only through your own free choice. A soul cannot be dragged into loving me, and when you realize you need me, I won't break into your life with a violent knock. Because if I forced my way inside your heart, would no longer be a peaceful home for my presence. It would be a room filled with fear instead of love. I am patient not because I am weak, but because I am strong enough not to force your attention. I don't demand an instant response from you. Real love is never used as a weapon of control. It is a gentle invitation, a breath upon your soul, and a quiet hope that never fades away. But my child, do not think this waiting has no consequence. I hold the door open, but you must choose to step through. I preserve the path home, but you must choose to walk it. I never leave you in silence, but a long silence can make it hard to hear my voice. Procrastination doesn't destroy the soul with fire. It slowly suffocates it like a heavy blanket cutting off your breath. The enemy exploits this vulnerability, not with loud threats, but with a gentle deception. He tells you to leave it for tomorrow. He whispers there is no hurry. He suggests pray only when you feel better. And the more you believe those lies, the further you drift. Not because you hate me, but because you forget the door is still open. I won't shut the door before you learn how to return. I only want you to remember that it won't stay open forever. Not because I abandon you, but because your own heart will harden if you wander too far. My child, I won't force you. Because force only creates souls that tremble in fear, rather than hearts that are truly free to love. I do not grab your wrist to drag you into the light. I set the light before you so you can choose to walk toward it. I do not tear down walls to invade your mind. I simply stand at the threshold, like a gentle knock on the door, knowing the answer must come from within. Love never demands submission, it invites trust. It doesn't reduce you to a servant. It lifts you from the posture of a victim into the dignity of being loved. If I forced you to bow before me, your surrender would just be an echo of fear, not the genuine cry of faith. If I took your soul by force, you would be nothing but a slave, not the child I created in my own image. I want you to come to me like someone seeking water when they are thirsty, not like a captive dragged to a well. Remember the times you came to me in complete freedom. Not because of pressure, but because your heart recognized its own limits. Nobody commanded you to weep those tears. No one forced you to speak those deep prayers. They flowed from the deepest part of your soul, from the empty space the world could never fill. I wasn't there to command. I was there to receive you. Not to demand, but to invite. True love gives your heart room to pray when it longs to, not when it is trembling in fear. It allows you to run to me because this is your home, not because I am your jailer. I do not want terrified, blind obedience. I look for souls who come back because they know I am life itself. You might wander, lose your way, or get tired, but when you return, I will never ask why it took so long. I just open my arms and hold you. Think of the prodigal son. I never sent guards to arrest him and drag him back to my house. I did not demand laws or use a whip. I did not post warning signs on every road demanding his return. I let him walk his own path, hitting rock bottom to realize that running away never changes my deep love. Distance only drains your soul. But when he finally turned around, it was not from fear or feeling forced, but the warm memory of a home where he belonged. His father ran to him, not asking him to kneel or offer excuses, only seeing a heart turning back. I am the exact same with you. I do not look for people who only know how to bow. I look for those ready to lift their eyes to me. My dear child, true love does not grab your wrist. It holds your heart. While fear traps your spirit, my love gives you wings. I made you to walk right beside me, not to be dragged behind. I grant you freedom because I want you to choose me. If I pulled your strings every time you strayed, you would be a puppet, not a living soul carrying my breath. If I locked up your mind to force your attention, you would be my prisoner, not my child. I invite you with patience, not pressure. I reach out with gentleness, not scary thunder. Only a response built on love is strong. A response built on fear is just a shadow without life. And my child, because I love you so much, I will never force you to change your path. I throw you a lifeline, but you have to grab it. I open the door, but you must step inside. I pour my voice like water on dry ground, but the soil must open up. The response I want is not the terrified cry of someone forced. It is the quiet whisper of a free soul saying, I choose you. When those words rise, heaven moves because you stand tall as my child. You are no longer ruled by fear, but guided by my love. This love does not demand possession, but sets you free. My dear child, do not think my patient waiting is weakness. I do not wait at the door because I am powerless. I do it to honor the gift of freedom in your soul. I could easily shake the ground and tear the sky with thunder until you cried out to me. But if you bow from fear rather than love, your soul is still not truly connected to mine. I do not want the submission of a terrified body. I want a heart that discovers its true purpose by freely choosing me. The enemy uses force because he does not know how to love. I invite you because true love only grows in the soil of a willing heart. When I wait, I want real partnership, not empty obedience. I want our hearts joined together. My child, do you see the difference? A slave obeys because of a whip, but a child walks beside me because they know my hand leads to life. Force only makes you act mechanically, but a heart that chooses me flows naturally like a river seeking the sun. No orders needed. It flows naturally. I am waiting for your heart to recognize my light ahead, not for you to drag yourself forward in the dark. So many try to fix themselves before they return, but I do not want people polished by sheer willpower. I want hearts that simply open their doors. The story of Samuel is a beautiful example. When I called him in the dark, I did not use terrifying thunder. I just whispered his name, Samuel. He heard me but did not understand, so he ran to Eli. I called a second time, not screaming, but just enough to stir the young boy's heart. It was not that I could not make him fall down in terror before me, but I wanted his young heart to recognize my voice. That is true relationship. I speak and you listen. It is partnership, not force. When Samuel finally said, "Speak, for your servant is listening," it was not the cry of someone under pressure, but the response of a soul opening its door to me. And from that day on, I gave him a mission, not because he was strong, but because he was ready. My child, when you hesitate, you are not just stalling a command, you delay our partnership. I am ready to set you free. I can do everything on my own, but I choose to work with you. I could move mountains with a single breath, but I want to plant a garden in the desert with you. I could destroy the enemy with a single word, but I want you to rise in faith and see my power working through you. I do not look for perfect achievements. I only seek hearts ready to walk beside me. If you hold back, my nature never changes. But if you step forward, your true purpose begins. My waiting is not because I lack power. I want you to grow strong as you hand your freedom to me. Remember, this season of waiting is never an empty silence. It is a quiet space where your soul softens and the tough layers of pride, fear, and self-defense finally begin to crack. I stand at the door of your heart, never leaving, but never forcing my way in. Because only when your own hand turns the handle and opens up do you truly embrace your identity as my child. This world is used to loud commands, but my kingdom is built on a quiet, whispered yes. The enemy uses force, but I only enter where I am invited. My child, let my patience remind you that you are never abandoned. You are deeply valued. My love never runs ahead of your readiness. It simply walks beside you when you are prepared. When you put off your response, you might think your silence is just letting me wait a little longer. But hesitation is never harmless. It actually gives permission for every other voice to speak to your soul. I never force your thoughts, and I will never lock the door of your free will. But you must realize that delaying is never harmless. It actually opens the door. When you say later, you hand a key to dangerous voices waiting outside, false comforts, fleshly desires, painful memories, and hidden fears. I do not come to you with a shout. I arrive like the first morning light slipping into a dark room, slow, quiet, and incredibly gentle. But darkness works differently. It does not need a storm to take over. It only needs you to hesitate when I call. And that single moment is all it takes to build a barrier in your mind. The enemy does not wait for you to fail. He only waits for your silence. And that silence is like an empty field where weeds take over before you even plan to sow. You might think you are still deciding, but the truth is your choice is already in motion. You either answer me right away or you hand control over to another voice. No invisible shield stops their intrusion. The only defense is your response. I do not demand perfect prayers, I only ask you to speak. Can you hear me? Your reply does not need to be long, loud, or logical. It just needs to be real. Because waiting never builds a home for your soul. It simply leaves the front door open. When you ignore my voice, your heart begins to drift. It drifts on autopilot. One hesitation leads directly to the next, like water cutting a new path around a stone never to return. You do not even notice yourself drifting because it feels so natural and reasonable. You are exhausted. You are busy, unprepared, and need more time. But that comfortable excuse is just the mask of spiritual erosion. I have seen so many souls swept away not by open rebellion but by tiny delays. Nobody notices when the light begins to fade. Only when the darkness is total do they realize exactly what they lost. I am not here to scold you for your silence. I do not use fear to drive you back to my arms. But look closely at what happens when you hesitate. You are not just pushing me away. You are pulling other voices closer. They arrive in many forms: the fake confidence of pride or the fleeting promises of pleasure, the obsession with results, constant comparisons, and the comfortable excuses of being busy. Every single one of them whispers the exact same message: not now. Once your heart hears that often enough, it stops recognizing my voice altogether. Even as I stand and call, hesitation never remains just a thought. It becomes a lifestyle. People do not lose their faith overnight. They simply ignore me day after day. You do not lose your spiritual focus through sudden rebellion. It fades through 1,000 tiny moments of saying later. I do not judge you for being weak. I only warn you that hesitation leaves a gap, and every gap becomes an open door. Never take for granted those quiet moments when I whisper to your soul. Those whispers are the guardrails and boundaries I set to keep you from losing your way. Delay never enters as a loud enemy. It slips in like a gentle suggestion. It feels like a soft tap on your shoulder, whispering that there is no rush, that today is not the day. You do not tremble or guard your heart because what weakens you is not an open battle, but soft persuasion. I have watched strong souls survive massive storms only to fall to the quiet whisper of delay like a draft slipping through a doorway. It does not hurt at first, but it slowly drains your spiritual strength until you can no longer remember what my voice sounds like. Delay tricks you into believing you are still in control, just waiting for the perfect time. But my timing is always now, while the enemy always whispers later. When you let hesitation rule your life, your heart does not stay empty. It becomes a crowded room of loud competing voices. These thoughts come in different shapes, but they all have one goal: to pull you away from me. One whisper tells you that rest matters more than talking to me. Another says your work must be finished before you can listen. Another whispers that you are not ready, not good enough, or not peaceful enough to come near me. They do not oppose me, they just postpone me. And you believe them easily because they sound reasonable, not rebellious. The scriptures say they hear your words, but their hearts chase their own desires. That is Ezekiel 3:33. They do not reject my truth. They listen with their ears, but their hearts do not belong to me. Delay is the quiet wedge that splits the ear from the heart. The enemy does not have to make you hate me. He just has to steal your urgency. He knows very well that I will never force you, and he slips right into that open space of freedom. I stand at your heart's door and knock. While scriptures say I knock and wait for you to open up, the enemy never knocks. He slips through the smallest cracks when you let your guard down. The second you say tomorrow, he whispers that he will be waiting. When you think you are safe, he quietly sows seeds of doubt and pride. Fear and loneliness settle softly like cold frost over a field before you even notice it. And by the time you look back, you realize you no longer answer my voice, but instead react instantly to fear and emotion, to old memories and the opinions of others. That is the sign that delay has taken control. It brings a different kind of damage. It tricks you into thinking my voice will change if you stay silent. You assume I will call again or say something different, speak louder or shout. But you do not realize that my voice does not change to pierce your heavy silence. Your own silence is what drags your soul away from my frequency. I do not shout to scare you. I do not scream to get your attention. I will not tear your heart open just to fill it. I speak like a gentle breeze rustling the leaves, but if you let other voices flood your mind first, you will miss my whisper even though I never stop speaking. The enemy knows the power of repetition. He does not need to shout. He just speaks constantly. He does not tell the truth, but his persistence makes you yield before you even realize you have bowed. Here is a truth you must face. Delay does not just slow down your response. It completely redirects it. If you do not answer me, you will answer someone else. If you do not open the door to me, you will open it to another voice. The soul that does not rest close to me will give its attention to whatever seems most urgent. There is no neutral ground for the soul, only a heart that does not realize who is leading it. That is why I tell you to walk in the light rather than wasting your time fearing the darkness. Darkness does not need your worship. It only needs you to ignore the light. Delay is like a needle hidden beneath the fabric of peace. No blood, no scars, just the illusion of calm until you lose all feeling. There are souls who once heard my voice, walked in my light, and tasted my power. Yet simple procrastination opened the door for the enemy to slip inside. Not because they fell into some massive sin, but because they let a tiny thought grow into a deep abyss. People think downfall starts at the moment of failure, but there is always a thin, invisible step before the actual fall. I will think about it later. Not today. It is not time yet. But Scripture preserves a story that cuts like a blade through generations, not to condemn you, but to warn you. After I sent the prophet Samuel to anoint Saul, I gave him a chance to obey me, not to show off his strength. I wanted trust, so I spoke clearly. Wait 7 days, only 7 days. Wait for me to come. Wait for my presence to fall over the people. Only then act, because victory does not come from weapons, but from a heart aligned in obedience. But Saul focused on the mounting pressure. He saw his people scattering and the enemy's spears glimmering in the distance. Feeling time run out under the weight of fear, he told himself he had to act. It was just one thought, not open rebellion, not breaking my covenant, not throwing away my word. He simply reacted to the pressure instead of trusting me. He offered the sacrifice before I arrived, as recorded in 1 Samuel 13. He did not think he was betraying me, he thought he was helping. But true obedience was replaced by the impulses of the flesh, and his postponement, waiting just a little longer to see if God would show up, turned into the key handed to the enemy. By the time Samuel arrived, the atmosphere had completely shifted. It was no longer a meeting with my chosen one, only the aftermath of his choice. Samuel did not scold him for being afraid. He spoke a single sentence that sealed his destiny: "You have acted foolishly." He did not call Saul wicked. He did not call him a rebel. He simply called him foolish, because putting things off always masquerades as wisdom. Consider this crucial truth. King Saul did not lose his crown by committing some terrible, dramatic sin. He lost it when he decided to take control. I set the timing, but he chose his own. I wanted him close to me. He cared more about what his soldiers saw than what I saw. He did not follow the enemy, he just failed to follow me. That is where the spiritual rift began. Once a soul drifts from my guidance, it instantly falls under the influence of another voice. Not because it wants to, but because the heart's quiet spaces cannot stay empty forever. When he offered that sacrifice, he was really saying, "I trust my own feelings over God's word." And instantly, the future I had designed for him started to fade. One moment of delay led to a lifetime of regret. Saul's ruin did not happen overnight. It happened slowly from the inside out, like a tree hollowed out by termites. He still ruled as king, still commanded troops, still won a few battles, and still wore the crown. But I had already left the throne he thought was his. It was a shift no human eyes could detect. It happened in the spiritual realm, where only I rule. And this is exactly what you so often miss. Delaying obedience does not change your life outwardly at first, but it quietly alters the course of your destiny. You still go to work, pray, and visit the church, but the spiritual wellspring inside you has drifted from me. You might not notice it because everything on the outside looks fine, but your soul has been anchored to something else. Do not assume that putting things off is just a sign of exhaustion. It is a dangerous path. When Saul refused to wait for my timing, he started a habit. He did not lose his life or kingdom right away. The crown stayed on his head, but from that day forward he began listening to himself instead of me. It started with, "I will act now to seize this chance." Then it grew into, "I will keep what is best instead of obeying God fully." And eventually he used my name to cover up his disobedience. That was when the prophet Samuel spoke the timeless truth: obedience is far better than sacrifice. 1 Samuel 15:22. I do not want grand gestures. I want a heart that obeys at the right time. Do not look at Saul and think you are different. He felt the same fear as you do. He wanted to hold on to what looked good just like you cling to things you value. He faced intense pressure and loneliness just like you face today. The real difference was not strength, but how he responded. You may have seen me, heard me, and walked with me. But if you delay today, you are taking his very first step. It is not open rebellion or anger, just taking control yourself. And suddenly other voices start taking over. Sometimes you think you are simply undecided, believing you have not rejected me or turned away. You feel you have not chosen the darkness, but are just pausing on the roadside like a traveler resting before continuing your journey. But my child, neutral ground simply does not exist in the spiritual realm. There is no middle ground between light and dark. Staying undecided is not safe. It is where the enemy builds his fortress. The enemy does not need you to pledge allegiance to him. He only needs you to withhold it from me. When a soul drifts between currents, it gets swept away by the tide, guided by direction rather than intention. The Apostle Paul warned us to tear down every argument that rebels against the knowledge of God. Take every thought captive to obey Christ. 2 Corinthians 10:5. This is not casual advice. It is a rule for those who stay alert. Untamed thoughts seek shelter in the dark, where the enemy never roars like a hunting lion. He speaks in whispers. He does not need to destroy you with sudden storms. He builds quietly, brick by brick, using doubt as mortar, false comfort as filler, and silent, flawed reasoning. He never asks if you want to betray God. He just asks, do you really need to act right now? He never forces you into darkness. He only wants you to delay obeying, to think it over, to wait for a better, calmer moment. But delay never brings real peace. True peace only comes when you surrender. My peace is clear. Confusion is simply where deception takes deep root. The enemy knows you would never choose him openly, so he avoids attacking your choices. He just attacks your delays. He strikes where your resolve is weak and your faith runs shallow. Think of it this way. Imagine watching someone build a house, believing a few missing bricks in the foundation do not matter. Yet day by day the walls go up, the roof is added, and the rooms take shape. When he realizes his house was built not by his own hands but by unseen workers. That is how it starts inside you. Thoughts tossed in like harmless bricks. Just a few more minutes, you think. No need to rush, you think. But these bricks slowly stack up, forming a mental fortress that blocks out my voice. That is why you feel a resistance whenever I call. It is not because you hate me, but because a barrier has been built between us. My child, those mental strongholds are not built from obvious sins. They are built with harmless phrases. A quick excuse of, I am fine, or a subtle delay like, I will do it tomorrow. Just simple everyday self-talk like, I am tired. Every single word becomes a brick, laid in the perfect spot. The enemy does not build with fire, he builds with small compromises. He knows you would easily resist a sudden massive temptation. So he changes his strategy. He no longer demands open rebellion, he just offers a gentle suggestion. He offers a quiet invitation to just focus on yourself. It is not a push to lose control, but a subtle, tender whisper. Every time you agree, he gains ground. Another layer is added to the wall. But my child's strongholds do not shatter from a heavy blow. They collapse when light enters. These mental fortresses are always built in the dark. They will start to crumble the moment you bring every thought into my presence. I do not ask you to smash down every brick. Just let my light shine there. When you look to me and say, lead me, you are not just praying, you are pulling down a brick. When you reject delay and say, I will act now, you tear away another section of that wall. When you speak from faith instead of confusion, the entire stronghold begins to shake. I am not asking you to fight like a warrior. I only need you to stand in the light, deeply loved. If you feel I am demanding too much, you do not understand how light works. Light never forces its way in. It simply shines, exposing everything hidden in the dark. The gentle movement of my spirit is nothing like loud human power. It carries none of the threats of evil. Instead, my spirit comes like a quiet breeze opening the window of a dark room. Like gentle dew that softens parched ground, or a ray of light finding its way through a crack in the stone. I do not want to shatter your mind. I want to restore it to the beautiful order I designed from the beginning. When you are exhausted from trying to fight the darkness alone, I do not tell you to run faster. I simply ask you to open the curtains and let my light in. Because the darkness never has the power to negotiate with light. It only exists where light is blocked out. My spirit does not work through noise, he moves in the quiet, hidden spaces of your heart. In the dark corners you thought were completely dead, and in the deep thought patterns you assumed were just part of who you are. He does not charge at your thoughts like a soldier. He gently illuminates them like a jeweler examining a precious gem. He does not shout at your fear to leave. He simply touches it and it melts away in his presence. Just as the night dew does not try to convince the dry ground that it needs water, but quietly seeps in until the soil is soft enough to receive the rain. In the same way, my spirit does not fight against what you hide. He simply continues to touch that hidden space until you are ready to let go. You often think your weakness disappoints me, but that exact weakness is the doorway my spirit uses to work. When you struggle to look perfect, you lock the door to real inner healing. My spirit does not demand a soul that has no cracks. He looks for a soul willing to open those broken places to his light. You try to build defenses using sheer discipline, focus, and self-control. But my spirit does not tear down those walls by wearing you out. He dismantles them through your surrender. A simple whisper, dwell in me. One quiet prayer, shine on me. One step, lead me. These small acts open the door. Once the door is cracked open, my light will do the rest. My child, I am not a loud voice shouting in your head. I am the warmth on your shoulder when you are weary. I do not overwhelm you with words. I lay my hand on your chest so your heart finds its peace. My spirit never forces you because he knows that pressure only makes you build up your defenses. He gently guides you into truth, knowing it only has power when you freely choose to receive it. The moment you open even a tiny crack in your mind, he will flood the entire wall with his light. When you hand over even a tiny piece of your worry, he opens a door for the storm raging inside your heart to finally clear. You have always believed that real change requires endless, exhausting effort. But true healing happens when you let me touch the places you keep locked away. My spirit does not come to force control, but to restore peace and freedom to your soul. When God shines a light into your darkest corners, it is not to condemn you, but to show you a way out. When he reveals a troubled thought, it is never to shame you, but to help you recognize the voice of truth. He does not want you bowing your head in shame, but holding it high with quiet understanding. He does not want you terrified, he wants you awake. And waking up does not mean straining to fight every temptation. It means standing in the light until temptation can no longer find a place to take root. You used to think spiritual warfare meant tightening every single nerve, fighting evil with your own strength, and suppressing dark thoughts like someone caught in a storm, desperately trying to block every crack in the door with trembling hands. But my child, darkness does not need to be chased away. It simply needs light. The spiritual strongholds of the enemy do not crumble because you scream at them. They fall when you open the door for me. When you struggle so hard to banish a sinful thought, you accidentally make it the center of your focus. But when you bring your mind into my light, you leave no place for darkness to hide. Surrender is not quitting, it is a holy repositioning. You stop focusing on the enemy and let your whole life revolve around me. Just like a dark room does not need to fight the shadows, it only needs to draw back the curtains for the sun. Some strongholds in your soul were not built by the enemy through obvious attacks, but by years of making excuses and delaying your obedience. Each time you whispered that it was not the right time, a brick was laid. Every time you promised to change later, more mortar was spread. Every time you ignored my voice, another story was built. You did not build this out of anger. You did not build with open rebellion. You built it with compromise. My spirit does not ask you to tear down those bricks with your bare hands. That kind of struggle will only leave you exhausted. He asks you for just one thing. Open the door and let my light stream inside. Light does not tear down walls brick by brick. It makes the entire foundation useless. My child, listen closely to this. I do not demand that you become a powerful warrior. I simply invite you to dwell in my light once again. The true response of the soul is not to try harder, but to say, please live in me. When you surrender, the enemy loses all power over your mind. Not because your resistance is stronger, but because the enemy has nothing left to hold. Like morning dew that does not fight the dust but settles it as moisture sinks deep into the earth. In this way, your surrender becomes the space where my grace moves. Peaceful, unhurried, yet completely unstoppable. Remember, the enemy only survives in the dark spaces you allow him to keep. But light thrives on the open heart you offer to me. Many people believe that true holiness is just about avoiding evil, but real holiness comes from drawing close to me. Anyone who fights darkness without stepping into the light will always battle an invisible enemy. But the soul who surrenders to the light will watch darkness disappear without ever having to fight. When I call you, I am not trying to test your strength, I am inviting you to lay it down. When you lay down your weapons of control, like self-justification and perfectionism, you do not become weak. Your hands are just finally free to let me in. Because light does not ask you to fight, it only asks you to open up. You could sit in a locked room screaming at the shadows forever, and nothing would change. Yet pulling back the curtains brings instant transformation without any struggle at all. I am inviting you into that simple peace. Not a mindless path, but a deep surrender where I carry the heavy burdens your soul cannot bear. When you yield, you are not giving me your failure. You are giving me permission to work in the deep places you cannot reach. That is where enemy strongholds begin to crumble. Not because you strike a blow, but because I am there. You often believe that I judge your worth by your achievements. You think I am waiting for you to hit a goal, overcome an obstacle, or climb a mountain before I truly love you. But my child, those standards belong to the world, not to me. I have never loved you for what you accomplish. My love is found in how close you draw to my heart. The first rainfall does not need to meet a quota to soften the dry ground. It only needs to fall at the perfect moment, and new life begins. Your willingness is just like that rain, quiet, gentle, yet powerful enough to heal the deepest dryness in your soul. You think I demand perfect results, but all I truly want is for you to come to me. You think you must earn my favor, but all I ask is one step in my direction. Too many people try to prove they are good enough before they ever dare to draw close. They count up error-free days, stacking small victories and keeping track of long prayers just to feel worthy. But they miss this truth. Every single minute of delay is a moment spent outside my warm embrace. I don't need a perfect checklist from you. I just want your heart to tremble when I speak. You don't have to prove your value to me. I want you to believe that your worth was already sealed from the very beginning. My kingdom isn't an arena where you run to earn approval. It is a home you return to before you even know how to walk. The souls who look weakest to the world are often the very ones I lift up first, not because they have the strength, but because they are willing. Being willing means reaching out even when the shore is lost. Whispering for help even when you have no plan. It means letting me step in the second you fall short. Opening your heart wide when you have absolutely nothing to give back. There is no complex formula here. It is just a tiny shift in your soul, a quiet lean toward my light. And that single choice changes everything. The first autumn leaf doesn't fall to force the season's arrival. It falls simply to show that the change is already here. Your open heart doesn't convince me to open the door. It just shows you heard my voice and are ready to walk through. When you only focus on results, you take my place as judge. You end up condemning yourself the moment you stumble. You shrink back when things slow down, shutting your heart when you fall short. But I don't judge you by your lowest failures or highest achievements. I meet you where your heart encounters my pure light. I never ask how many battles you have won. I only ask if you get back up when you hear my call. I don't ask what took so long, just if you'll turn to me now. An open heart softens the soil, letting my blessings find a path. It swings the door wide open. This lets my Holy Spirit enter. Being willing isn't a sign of your strength. It proves you finally stopped relying on yourself. So do not weep over what you haven't achieved yet. I don't look for flawless souls to serve me. I call out to those who will answer. I never measure a soul by how far it has traveled. Every chapter of your life has a purpose. Even moments of weakness are designed to deepen your roots of faith. There is nothing you can do to make me love you more. Just keep your heart soft enough for me to mold. Once you stop chasing achievements to win my love, you'll find true peace. Remember, I chose you long before you ever had a single success to show. Sometimes you mistake obedience as something built on pure confidence and strength, as if you must be certain you've done enough or that you are good enough. But my child, real obedience never comes from feeling deserving. It flows from knowing exactly where my word comes from. Think of a violinist pressing down on the right string. The beautiful sound doesn't just happen because of raw talent. It happens because they align with established laws of sound. In the same way you don't create my divine will. You simply position yourself where my voice can echo through you. Following me isn't like a champion stepping up to claim a trophy. It's a soul stepping into the rhythm of the life I designed for you, where you no longer crave the spotlight. Walking with me becomes your soul's natural rhythm. My child, you used to think obeying me was about proving your ability, but I never search for people trying to show how strong they are. When you believe you've earned your way, you accidentally try to act as the source of your own blessings. You begin to think your own effort opened the door, and when a path blocks you, start questioning your self-worth. But when you walk in humble awareness, you see that every single door opens only in my perfect timing. Every step forward isn't a show of your own strength, but simply an answer to my call. Just like that holy night in Bethlehem when Mary didn't say, "I'm good enough to carry the Savior," but instead whispered, "Let it be to me according to your word." That wasn't weak humility. It was the quiet strength of a heart that knew my will is the only true foundation. True obedience isn't just an emotional reaction when your heart is on fire. Those who only follow when they feel inspired will stop the moment that feeling fades. Emotion is just a sudden spark. Trust is the steady ember that keeps you warm through the longest night. If you only obey when you feel like it, you'll walk a little way and wonder why the path went dark, why your feet are tired, and why there is no applause. But the soul that walks in trust needs no praise. You won't look to a noisy world to validate your progress. You only look for enough light to take one step, trusting that more light will appear the moment your foot lands. Perfect obedience is like a tiny sprout quietly pushing its way through the cold spring soil. Not because the tiny sprout feels great, but because it knows the season has arrived. My child, humbling yourself in obedience does not make you small. It releases you from the pressure to prove your worth. When you follow me saying, "Lead me," your soul is no longer ruled by comparison, envy, or the fear of failing. You no longer face decisions with your guard up, but in a posture of absolute trust. Seeing my hand simplifies the path. You do not need to force courage before every single choice. Just ask where I am leading you. When following me becomes a natural rhythm instead of a chore, doors will open. Not because you knocked harder, but because you knocked at the perfect moment. And in that exact moment, my peace will cover you. You are no longer rushing ahead to prove yourself. You are walking beside me, living out the beautiful plan I prepared for you from the very beginning. Just as the first leaf does not fall to convince autumn that its time has arrived, but simply responds to the quiet call of the season, the obedient soul arrives at its appointed hour in silence. It does not need others to notice. It does not require you to explain or constantly argue with your own mind. It only needs to recognize that I am your source. And when your heart responds with simple trust instead of trying to perform, you will enter a space where my grace flows gently like water seeking the lowest valley. Not because that water is weak, but because it naturally finds the right path. You often worry that I might turn my back on you, fearing that one day I will grow tired, disappointed, or exhausted, leaving you alone in the wounds you brought upon yourself. But my child, I am not like the people of this world. I do not love you the way humans love each other. Their love grows thin when tested, changes when ignored, and fades under disappointment. I love you with the fierce devotion of the one who breathed life into your dust-formed soul. Water does not abandon the stone by its own choice. Only when the stone resists and forces itself out of the stream does it lose the cool current. The more you try to stand in the dryness of your own strength, the farther away I seem, not because I ever left, but because you walked away. The abandonment you fear is not my doing. It is what you build when you shut me out. When your heart says, "I can handle this on my own," that is when you push me out of your mind. When you listen to the noise of the world and ignore my whisper, you shut your ears to my gentle guidance. When you use exhaustion, boredom, or hurt pride as an excuse to walk away from me, you unknowingly wander into the very fields where the enemy lies in wait. I will never abandon you, but I will not force open the doors you have locked from the inside. I never break my way in. I wait for your shaking hand to unlock it, even if just an inch. My light only needs a tiny crack to break through, while darkness needs the entire room to survive. My child, never mistake my silence for my absence. Sometimes I am quiet not because I have left, but because I am standing right behind you, holding back a storm your eyes cannot see. A child crying in the dark feels completely alone. They do not realize a comforting hand is resting on their shoulder, guiding each step so they will not slip. You will not always see me fighting your battles. If you did, you would never truly understand what faith is. Sometimes I step back not to test you, but to teach you to seek my light instead of your own shadows. I never pull away from you. Even when you cry out, "I am not worthy," in that exact moment, I am closest because you finally realize your own strength was never the foundation. Hearts that have survived disaster, fallen hard, or lost their way in sin are often the ones who tremble and ask, "Do you still accept me?" And I answer with peace, "I never stopped welcoming you. You simply forgot how to get home." The distance you feel comes from you turning away, not from me walking away. When you dwell on old wounds, relive past failures, and drown in feelings of worthlessness, you build a cage in your mind and decide I am gone. But a surrendered soul knows you do not have to perform before coming home. Just turning back to me is the deepest prayer you can offer. Water does not ask if a stone is clean before flowing over it. It simply surrounds it, smoothing, washing, and restoring it to its true shape. So my child, understand this. I never abandon a soul that is struggling. I never ignore anyone who trembles while searching for me. I never forget a child who stumbles on their way back home. I only step back when you lock your heart against me, not because I want distance, but because I deeply honor the freedom I gave you. I have the power to shake mountains, yet I choose to knock gently at your heart. Because I do not want slaves, I want children who simply say, "Please come in." And the exact moment you whisper those words, the enemy's stronghold collapses. Not because of your own strength, but because my light has finally found a home. So many hurting souls believe that to return to me, they have to prepare long explanations, perfect apologies, and lists of their failures. They think I expect some perfect speech, a logical case, or proof that they are ready to change. But my child, the door to your heart is not opened by eloquence. It opens with one simple movement, just reaching out to turn the handle. A single ray of light does not wait for the sun to flood the room before slipping in. It only needs a tiny gap in the curtains. It is the same with your heart. It only takes a tiny step toward me, even trembling, unfinished, and completely wordless. And I will take care of the rest. I do not need a storm of words. I just need a breath coming home. You used to think coming back to me had to be grand, a long night of prayer or some dramatic promise to fix everything, a speech of absolute determination that would amaze anyone listening. But my child, I have watched so many souls break under the weight of those expectations. They are afraid to return because they feel unworthy, unready, and unable to offer the perfect apology. They wait until they feel steady, until every single wound has healed and every weakness is gone before they even dare touch the door. But your spiritual journey does not wait for perfection. It begins with one small step while your heart is still shaking. Your hand might tremble, but the handle is steady. The door does not question you, it simply opens when you reach out. My child, reaching for that handle is not an act of strength. It is surrender. And surrender is not defeat. It is realizing you have stumbled in the dark for long enough. Just as a beam of light does not fight with the curtain, it does not scold or demand answers. It just waits for a tiny opening. I wait for you exactly like that. I do not pound on the door to force it open, nor do I shout to frighten you. I simply stand here and wait. My hand rests gently on your heart, not to push you, but to remind you that real life exists outside those walls you built. The moment you turn even slightly, I will widen the gap. Whenever you whisper, "Help me," I will act as a gentle breeze filling your sail, never expecting you to fight the waves all alone. Some ask me, if you love us, why do you not just open the door yourself? And I tell them, because that door belongs to you. I place the handle on your side to respect your free will. I can shake the heavens, but I will never force your heart to love me. I could flood your life with blinding light, yet I choose to slip through the tiny space you open for me. By grace, I have every right to enter, but in love, I choose to wait. True love never forces a transformation. It lifts you up when you choose to live. Real spiritual growth is not me walking instead of you, but us walking together. Even if that step is so incredibly small that it is nothing more than reaching out to take my hand. So my child, do not wait for overwhelming emotions. Do not wait for blinding visions. Do not wait to be perfect before you begin. So much life is wasted waiting for a spectacular comeback. So many doors stay locked because people think they must feel holy before they can even turn the key. But the sacred moment is right now, when you dare to touch the handle instead of drowning in your thoughts. The door opens for those who move with gentle trust, who admit they are not safe on their own and realize I am not waiting for a speech. I only want you. And when you touch that handle, it is not that I suddenly appear. It is simply you returning to the exact place where I have stood from the very beginning. Many believe that the first yes must change everything instantly. Fear must vanish, wounds must heal, and old habits must die overnight. They expect the road to flatten as if miracles are instant repairs. But my child, that first step of faith is not fireworks. It is just the quiet click of a light switch in a dark room. The darkness does not vanish instantly, but it loses its grip on you because light has started to flood in. You do not need to see the whole path to step forward. You only need enough light to see that what lies ahead is no longer a dark abyss. That first yes will not solve everything, but it breaks the chains of hesitation that have kept you stuck for far too long. It is like the first shaky breath of a soul learning to breathe again. It is not deep, it is not steady, but it is enough to prove you are still alive. You used to think your response had to be flawless, that if you lacked strength or faith, you should remain silent until you were better prepared. But my child, that very silence is where the enemy builds his power. It doesn't need you to agree completely, it just needs you to hesitate. It doesn't oppress you with sudden attacks, but through slow delay. Like a vine choking a chair without needing deep roots. It only has to wrap around every corner, every leg, each armrest until you can't even sit down. Your first yes is the blade cutting through that vine. Even if it only cuts one strand once, that first cord snaps, the whole trap starts to unravel. It has to rebuild from the roots. In that exact moment, its power is broken. My child, the enemy doesn't fear your big, loud promises. It dreads your first small step. It doesn't fear sermons about faith. It fears you moving out of that rut. The souls it traps are the ones waiting for a perfect moment before they ever start. They think the timing isn't right, or they need to be more stable first. But that perfect moment never arrives. The enemy builds that mirage just to keep you waiting, and waiting is his heaviest chain. Your first yes doesn't have to be a razor-sharp blade, just deep enough to slice the cord. Once that rope snaps, the grip is broken. It isn't a total victory yet, but it's the start of your freedom. People ask me why one simple yes can't solve everything. I tell them because I don't shape a soul with just one quick miracle. I build through steady daily steps. A tiny sprout doesn't become a massive tree overnight. That first yes is the seed taking root. I feed it with my light. I water it with my presence. I protect it from the cold. But your soul has to push those roots down deep. Growth isn't fireworks, it is quiet warmth in the soil. And that warmth starts when you break the shell of silence. That first yes won't bear fruit right away. My child, I've watched so many people run from taking action because they are terrified of failing. They say if I try and fail, I will be so ashamed. But I don't look at the stumble. I look at where your soul rests. The enemy feeds on your fear of failing, so you never taste victory. He doesn't need to destroy you completely. He only has to delay you until you tie yourself to that chair. I don't demand perfection in your answer. When you say yes, even while your heart is shaking, even when your faith feels incomplete, and when you don't understand it all, you've already broken the hold of delay and put out the enemy's fire in your mind. That first response is like a soft breath in a room locked for years. And that tiny breath is proof that life has not left your soul. But as you keep answering every time you step into my light, you are telling the darkness that you don't belong to it anymore. You don't need to scream or prove yourself or dress up your prayers with fancy words. A simple answer is the loudest way to break the silence, because silence is where the enemy rules. When you choose to speak, to open up, to take a step, you tear down the cozy spaces where darkness has been hiding. The enemy has nowhere to cling because your answer destroys every assumption it ever made about you. That you'd keep delaying, that you'd keep waiting, that you'd keep lying to yourself about tomorrow. My child, some think answering me has to be a grand, flashy show. But I tell you, a spiritual answer isn't thunder. It's the small, quiet choices. It's deciding to turn your face to me even when your heart is shaking. When you choose to pray even when you feel absolutely nothing inside. When you kneel even with a tangled mind. These small choices declare louder than anything, I do not belong to the silence. You might think silence is harmless, neutral ground. But in the spiritual world, neutrality doesn't exist. Silence is where the enemy builds his fortress. Your answer is where victory begins. One whisper of "led me," one simple word of "I return," one step of "I will obey." Each of these is a brick pulled from the walls of your invisible prison. Remember the story you once read. David stood before Goliath without battle experience, without armor, and without a shiny sword. He had only a sling and a few stones. But Goliath didn't tremble because of the stones. He trembled because David answered my call. The whole army of Israel stood silent, watching and trembling under the weight of thinking they weren't enough. That silence only made the giant seem bigger, stretching his shadow over all of them. But when David stepped into that valley, it wasn't reckless. It was a declaration that he didn't belong to silence. He didn't fight Goliath with human strength. He answered me with pure faith. And what I did next silenced the entire nation before my power. My child, David did not win because he was stronger than the giant, but because he refused to stay silent. Silence says, "You are weak." An answer says, "I am with you." Silence says, "Wait." Your faith says, "Start now." Silence says, "You must understand everything first." But faith says, "I will step forward first and figure it out later." I do not need you to hold 5 stones in your hand. I only ask you to reach into the pouch. I do not demand long prayers to defeat your demons. I only need you to whisper, "I am here." That response declares where your soul stands. Remaining silent is simply handing over your ground to the enemy. But speaking up opens the door for me to reclaim the territory that was always mine. When you answer, you do more than just talk to me. You are reclaiming the true identity of your soul. Who you are is not defined by past pain or years of failure. Your identity is shaped by the voice you choose to answer. Many souls collapse not because they are weak, but because they stay silent too long, letting the enemy label them with shame, with fear, and with delay. Yet just one word, one brief moment where you speak to me is enough to break the dark grip of the abyss. I have seen people who believed they were too far gone, too heavy, or too broken to return. But all they had to do was whisper, glance my way just once, and the power of heaven rushed to drag them back from the deep. Your tiniest whisper is far more powerful than the loudest, longest silence. When you call out to me, do not treat it as a ritual, a chore, or something that must be flawless to get my attention. I am not standing far away waiting for you to finish some perfect ceremony. I do not grade your prayers or score your performance. I listen like a stream welcoming back its own water, like air rushing into your lungs when you take your first breath after suffocating. Connecting with me is not a performance based on religious rules. It is a return to who you were made to be, a soul that simply turns to its creator. When your heart cries out even slowly with doubts, I notice that motion like the first light of dawn after a dark night. It does not need to be bright, just there. It is the simple, honest, unstructured turning that matures your soul, proving you have learned to see me like the air you breathe, not just a scheduled task. This spiritual breathing does not wait for crisis. It does not only show up during perfectly planned prayers. It happens in moments when you sit quietly on a bench, not even trying to find the right words, but still turn your heart my way. It comes when you walk down the hallway at work and whisper, "Keep me in peace." It comes when your soul is heavy and words fail you, yet you still breathe out, "Be here." Those short words do not make you holy. It is the turning itself that is holy. I see people who only seek my face when they need a miracle. But I also see those who seek me like breath-steady quiet, making no empty promises except to leave their hearts in my hands. One looks for results, the other looks for my presence, and those who seek presence become strong vessels that will not crack under hard trials. You used to think connecting with me required perfect timing, a quiet mind, an organized heart, and a life completely put in order. But my child, your lungs do not wait for your body to be healthy before they start breathing. Instead, breathing is what keeps you alive. When you feel weak, speak to me. When you are confused, talk to me. When your heart feels tangled, call on me. You do not gather up strength before you take a breath. You simply inhale. I do not require perfect prayers. I only ask, will you still return to me? Or has silence begun to speak for you? Connecting with me does not start with planning. It starts with turning my way. Every step toward me is a prayer, not because of your words, but because you choose me over the noise. Me over your own thoughts. Me over constant delay. My child, a mature soul is not one that repeats fancy spiritual words, but one that keeps praying even when emotion no longer carries the weight. You will eventually enter the wilderness, a dry place where promises seem to fade away and every prayer feels empty. But there you will learn a deep truth. Our bond does not rest on emotion, but on relationship. You cannot sustain a true connection on excitement alone. And every single time you choose to pray in the darkness, you ignite a flame the enemy can never put out. For spiritual growth does not come from dramatic loud prayers, but from steady quiet ones, like a heartbeat that needs no cheering crowd or the morning sun that rises without needing anyone to name it. Never assume that my silence means I have left you. I am not a flickering flame that dims based on your changing emotions. Even when you are silent, I am still speaking. When you stop talking, I remain. But when you connect with me daily in that simple and steady way, you clear a path for my spirit to reach deeper into your soul. I do not appear in sudden bursts of intense emotion. I come through the quiet breathing of a heart that simply keeps its eyes on me. And once this quiet prayer becomes as natural as breathing, you will stop seeking me just to get quick answers. You will speak simply because you have discovered that living in my presence is true life. Some think a relationship with me demands hours of exhausting prayer, dramatic pain, or flashy holy moments. But my child, I do not want your strained and heavy effort. I want a heart that knows how to return to me in the quiet, ordinary moments of your day. Like soft light slipping through a crack instead of tearing down the whole wall. My presence does not arrive with loud force, but through a heart that gently opens itself to me. It happens when you pause in a busy room just to breathe and whisper, "Stay with me." I am there when you sit with a cold cup of tea and remember me. I am there when you run out of words and can only whisper. You know my heart. I am right beside you. Our connection does not grow through sudden leaps. It builds by connecting small, quiet moments one after another, creating a strong spiritual path that never needs to be loud. You might think real prayer requires feeling some massive, extraordinary emotion from me. But like a tiny plant drinking morning dew, you do not see how the small truths I plant in your mind every day are feeding your soul. I speak in thoughts as soft as a breeze, prompting you to pause a single second before saying words that might hurt someone else. I speak through a sudden wave of peace during your busy day, or a verse of scripture that suddenly shines brightly through the noise. My voice is not always thunder that shakes the sky. Often it is as gentle as rustling leaves whispering in the wind. I know you have trained your heart to look only for huge signs demanding clear proof of success or failure. But a mature soul notices me in the quiet details because it walks in my rhythm and does not need a dramatic miracle just to start listening. Choosing to keep your focus on me is a powerful spiritual decision. The enemy cannot destroy you. Choose to fix your thoughts where my light is steady. Our bond is not built on sheer mental willpower or harsh rules. It grows when you let me enter those small, quiet spaces that the busy world completely ignores. I know your schedule is full. I know you are exhausted. I know you do not always have the energy for long prayers, but you can still look my way. Keep me in your breathing in that quiet pause as you open a door and in the brief second before you react in anger. Every single time you do this, you are saying, "I am still here." And I reply, "I am still here." We do not need a grand ceremony to spark our connection. Just avoid breaking our connection through intentional neglect and gently remember the promises I have already given you in Scripture. I am with you always, even to the very end of the age. Matthew 28:20. I did not say I am only with you when you pray or when you feel worthy. I am with you when you listen, when you are silent, when you stumble, and when you stand tall. My presence does not rely on your perfection, but your connection with me relies on your willingness to see me in the quiet moments of daily life. As you walk through a familiar door, I am there. When you fold your laundry, I am right there. When you take your first sip of water in the morning, I am there. A mature heart knows that I do not only show up in grand dramatic events, but I slip into every single crack of your daily life. My child, if you only look for me in big events, you will spend your entire life just waiting. If you only hear my voice during storms, you will start craving chaos just to feel close to me. But once you find me in the small things, you will not need a crisis to feel safe, because my safety has become the very air you breathe. If you can hear me in the quiet, you will not panic when trials come. That is because your heart is already trained to hear me in the quiet. Prayer is not a switch you only flip during a crisis. It is the steady breathing of the soul that keeps you from ever breaking down. And you do not need heavy effort to keep it going. All you have to do is keep coming back to me, just like a heartbeat that never asks if it should keep beating. It simply beats because it knows your very life depends on that movement. When you answer me consistently with no fancy words or ritual, just a small, real movement of your heart, the enemy starts losing ground in your mind. He relies on your delay to build a stronghold. He needs your silence to build his first wall and your procrastination to pitch his tent right inside your thoughts. But every single time you answer me, even with a whisper, a breath, or a simple, I am here, you cut off the very air it needs to breathe. Not because you scream, but because you turn your eyes to me, shattering the strongholds before they can even be built. The enemy does not win using sudden storms. It quietly builds through the slow habit of neglect. But I do not expect you to build a wall of fire. I only need you to open the door. Light does not struggle to push back the dark. It just needs a way in. Never think that reaching out to me has to be exhausting tense or pages of perfect prayers. Sometimes you just look up from your screen, put a hand over your heart, and whisper, "Lead me." To me, that is already a fallen stronghold. On mornings when you lack the strength to speak, your heart still whispers, "Do not let me drift away." I call that a victory. And on nights when you are simply too tired to pray, you still turn away from the things pulling you toward darkness, choosing instead to rest in my silence. The enemy knows that is a defeat because even your smallest response proclaims my authority over your soul. The enemy does not fear your perfection, it fears your persistence. Not because you are stronger, but because you refuse to leave the door open for taking. You might think one small prayer changes nothing, but my child, that single moment starts a holy rhythm. Seek me today and your heart will hear me much easier tomorrow. When you reject the enemy's whispers today, tomorrow he has to hunt for a brand new entryway. Every day that search gets harder. Faith is not a wildfire, it is a breath. Steady, slow, keeping your spiritual life moving without pause. The enemy does not look for noise. He looks for empty spaces. He never builds strongholds on shaky ground. He only builds on land that has fallen asleep. But a soul that speaks to me regularly never sleeps in the dark. Think of this like cleaning your home. Dust always returns, but if you sweep a little every day, it never builds up. Your mind works the same way. Unwanted thoughts are not scary when they are just fleeting ideas. They only grow heavy when you leave them alone. When feelings of fear, doubt, or heavy guilt rush over you, you might feel completely lost. Yet you quietly call out, "Lord, stay near me." That is your first sweep of the broom. Next, you pause before reacting and choose quiet stillness instead. That is your second sweep. Soon you will look back and find your mind is no longer a dry desert for the enemy to live in. It has become a sanctuary for me. It is not won in one massive battle, but by tiny daily choices. Turning to me regularly does not require fierce fighting. It simply makes your heart a place where darkness cannot take root. You never have to shout down the enemy. You only need to open the door to my light. You do not have to prove your love with loud promises. When you seek me daily, not as a chore but as a rhythm of grace, your mind naturally builds a shield of light. A stronghold of darkness needs time, silent neglect, and your complete lack of response to grow. Yet one tiny word of faith cracks its very foundation. I am not teaching you how to fight, but how to deny it ground to grow. You do not have to spend your life wrestling with the dark. Simply let me be present and the rest will fall into place. Some believers walk in faith but carry themselves like lonely exiles, always guarded, filled with doubt, living as though they must prove they deserve my love. They think I demand perfection before they can come back, believing weakness means they have failed. They assume their mistakes make them unworthy of my hand. But I did not create you to seek me today only to hide from me tomorrow. I want you to come back to me knowing you truly belong here, not like a guilty runner hiding from the storm, but like a soul coming home. I am your breath of life, the place where you never need permission to enter. Living as one who always returns means knowing that closeness with me is not bought with achievements but kept through an honest heart. You do not have to sprint back to me, you only need to take a step. My child, those who run away waste their energy dodging the light, inventing 100 excuses to delay a simple moment with me. They constantly wonder, have I done enough? Am I truly worthy? Will I be judged? Those doubts become the very ropes that bind their soul. Yet the one who always returns carries those same heavy questions. With only one difference, they do not let them stop their steps. They know I see the secrets they dare not speak aloud. Yes, I understand the deep fears they have not even named. They come to me not in strength, but knowing their weakness near me is safer than pride far away. That person does not fight against my light. They just open the door and let my presence fill the room. Walking as one who always returns does not mean you never make mistakes. It means you refuse to let failure define your path. On days when you feel completely broken, you still whisper, "Have mercy on me." There are nights heavy with doubt, yet you still whisper, "Please guide me." There are seasons when you feel so empty, believing you have nothing left to give. Yet you still reach out to me instead of shutting the door. When you do this, you do more than break the enemy's voice of condemnation. You teach your soul a new rhythm, the rhythm of returning, not running away. Those who run think darkness is safe because it hides their deepest wounds. But the one who always returns knows the light is safe because it heals them. Many souls wander far from me and then come back asking, "Will you take me back?" I never answer you with arguments. I answer with my heart. I did not make you just to count your falls. I made you to learn how to rise and draw closer each time. I do not call you to walk into a courtroom. I call you to open a door. I do not hold you in harsh judgment. I keep you in my mercy. You do not live as someone who must beg for permission to be loved. You were loved long before you could even speak my name. When you see me as a safe refuge and not a stage to prove yourself, your soul won't need to hide. It only needs to return. My child life is full of moments that make you want to disappear. Disappointment, judging eyes, repeated mistakes, and the whisper that says you are not enough. But you do not have to run from me every time you stumble. I do not call you a runaway. I call you the one who returns. I did not build heaven as a fortress for the perfect. It is a home for those who refuse to let fear silence their prayer, "Please receive me." Living as one who always returns means living in the gentle softness of trust. You accept that I am the source and you are the stream. I am the sky and you are the bird. I am where you begin and where you return. When you realize this, every fragile step you take moves toward me, and that is more than enough. My child, you do not return just to drink in my light and lock it away as a decoration for your private faith. Light is meant to move and spread, touching the lives of others the way a fresh stream flows through a dry meadow. The soul that knows how to return does not hoard my light for itself. Instead, it becomes a living spring, a place where my presence flows through the dry hearts around you. Just as a stream does not keep water only for its own bed, and as the morning dawn does not lock light inside the clouds, you are called to stop just absorbing and start carrying my light. Not because you are strong, but because my light cannot stay asleep in a heart that is still beating, even when you do not fully understand it. This light seeks to carve a path through your every breath, word, and action. Many people think faith is a strictly private thing, a secret conversation locked in a quiet room completely hidden from the world. But you were not created to be a sealed well. You were made to flow. When you return to me and let my light heal your wounds, you do not just recover, you become a living testimony without even trying to perform. Others will see peace in your eyes when everyone expects you to fall apart. They will hear patience in your voice when you should explode. They will see steady steps when you ought to be falling to your knees. You do not have to announce that you carry my light. Your very presence and the quiet peace in your soul will reveal it. My light does not demand that you become a speaker. It simply calls you to live, and life naturally spreads. If a soul only takes in the light, grows heavy because it is trapped in a small, tight space. But when that soul begins to give, carrying the light becomes as natural as breathing. In your daily interactions, you do not need to lecture anyone. Just make sure you do not hide me in some secret corner of your heart. You walk into your job not to fight for status or position, but simply as a carrier of my presence. You walk through your front door not to critique or judge, but simply to sit down and listen. You face hard trials not to prove your own strength, but knowing that I was already there waiting for you. Your words may not always mention my name, but they will carry my spirit. Speak with patience, gentleness, and an abundance that never overwhelms others. Just as a flowing stream does not choose where its water travels, your soul does not need to choose where my light shines. You simply let the light shine through you. I know there are times when you feel far too broken to share anything good. You think you have to be completely pure before you can help anyone else. But my child, I do not choose perfect vessels. I choose cracked vessels because those broken places become windows that let my light shine through. It flows through those who have fallen, returned, and learned to stay with me despite their pain. The wounds in your soul never make you unworthy. They make my light visible. A river is not defined by its width, but by the way it flows. Your soul is not a source because it is perfect, but because it does not hide my presence. My child, when you start living as a light, the enemy tries to force you back into hiding. He wants you to believe that faith is only meant for quiet meditation, not for pouring out, or that blessings are just to keep, not for restoring dry, weary souls. But the enemy forgets one truth. The more a stream flows, the deeper the spring. The more you give, the more light you carry. When you rest in me, you lose nothing by giving. You only create more room for me to pour. You are never drained when you encourage others. You only expand so that I can fill you even more. A soul that returns to me never stops there. It goes back to step forward, carrying my light into the darkest places I have chosen. And as you walk, I walk beside you, my child. I do not require massive feats to let my light shine through you. I only invite you to step into every moment with the heart of one who has come back home. You think miracles only come from loud prayers or fiery sermons or world-changing deeds. But you do not yet see that heaven often slips into our lives through the gentlest movements. Light never arrives with thunder. You choose to listen to someone who is down instead of trying to win the argument. You keep quiet when someone is angry instead of fighting back with your own rage. You send a quick note of hope to a friend drowning in chaos instead of pushing them off. These things never make the news. They do not win applause, but I notice them and I move through them. My child, so many people think they must prepare everything, reaching some high spiritual state before they are worthy for me to use. But do you not know that my light does not wait for perfection? It only waits for a willing heart. When you open up in your most ordinary moments, my spirit uses that simple space to touch another soul. It is not because you have my whole plan figured out, but because you welcome me into every small decision. Like when you stand up on a bus to give your seat to an elderly person with trembling hands, or when you place a hand on the shoulder of a struggling coworker slowing down to listen to a frightened heart. You are clearing a path for me to walk. My child, you cannot see that behind every small act a shower of grace is quietly building. In daily life, so many pass each other by without ever truly connecting. They look but do not see. They hear but do not receive. They brush past one another without feeling a thing. You are not called to live that way. My light does not make you a distant person. It makes you fully present. You do not always have to offer loud prayers to heaven. Sometimes you just need to show up. People will remember you not for the lessons you taught, but for the way you truly listened to them. Others will remember you not for your grand achievements, but because you made them feel seen and valued. I need souls like yours not to build massive monuments of spiritual pride, but to soften the dry soil of human hearts. When you stay faithful in the little things, the enemy loses ground inside your mind inch by inch. The enemy cannot break a soul that has learned to hear my voice in quiet daily tasks. He may tempt you with grand illusions, but he becomes powerless when you walk with me in simple everyday life. Whether at your desk in the kitchen, a hospital hallway, or out on a walk, I am with you. You do not have to strain to spread light. You simply refuse to hide it. When you look at someone with genuine kindness or reply to a text with patience instead of irritation, the light is already spreading. When you promise to pray for someone and actually do it, the light spreads. These are narrow pathways, but along them my life always finds a soul to touch. My child, never think that ordinary moments are beneath you. In my eyes, they are the very lifeblood of faith. You might stand behind a pulpit once in your life, but you enter the kitchen to cook every single day. You might pray aloud in church for 1 hour, but you face pressure at work 5 days a week. That is where the real front line is. When you live with a heart turned back to me, simple actions stop being mere habits. They become sacred service. Not service in ritual, but in daily rhythm. Every decision, every reaction, and every single glance, every breath. Within that quiet space, you become a pathway I can use. Not loud or flashy, but steady, just like a stream that never stops flowing. Once you have walked your own journey, when you learn to say yes before asking questions and realize that stalling isn't just waiting, it is an open door for other voices. A new shift begins to take shape. It spills out of your private life, spreading like quiet ripples across a still lake. You used to think your choices only mattered to you, that your spiritual growth was just about your own heart, your own path, your own healing. But you do not see the eyes watching you. Quiet souls hoping someone will step out first. Closed hearts waiting for a single sign that proves God's light is real. You do not realize that every time you answer my call, you plant a seed in the spiritual world around you. And that seed is never lost or forgotten like dust in the wind. It turns into a beacon of hope. Like a tiny campfire, it is enough to guide lost travelers back to camp. A soul who learns to trust and follow me quietly becomes a living sign of hope to everyone else. You might never know them by name, but every small thing you do in private, every silent prayer, the patience no one applauds, the forgiveness no one sees, it all weaves an invisible thread from your heart to theirs. You once asked me why others feel so much lighter just by seeing my peace in you. It is because true peace is not meant for you alone. It is my Holy Spirit moving through you, flowing into quiet spaces where there are no sermons, scriptures, or songs. When you walk into a tense room, the stillness in your eyes becomes a silent invitation to rest. You step into conflict, and your refusal to fight back becomes a powerful, silent testimony. No one sees how you struggled in the dark just to hear my voice. Yet that hard choice lets the light in, not just for your own soul, but for every room you walk into. Spiritual awakening does not start with massive crowds. It does not come from bright stage lights or loud roaring applause. It starts with one soul turning back to me, then two who begin to walk, then three who stand up when I call. I do not move through pressure or force. I move when hearts beat together in my perfect agreement. When different souls, each with their own story and pace, all choose to say yes to me. The moment I speak, they connect like roots under the soil. No one sees them, but they keep the whole forest standing through the worst storms. A single tree might get blown down by the wind, but the forest stands because its roots are locked together, sharing strength, water, and life. This is how I designed my church to work. Not just a few superstars, but many hearts quietly agreeing. You do not need a stage. You do not have to be a hero. You only need to step into your place in this flow. When you live as someone who has returned to me, people feel the shift in your presence, your gaze, and your touch. They cannot explain it, but they know it is nothing like the empty, frantic hurry of this busy world. They see someone who used to be anxious now resting in peace. Someone who used to argue now ready to listen. The soul who once feared now deaf to the enemy's lies. They might not understand how it happened, but they see the change. And right then, a quiet question stirs in their hearts. If God's light is real for you, could it be real for me too? I do not need you to preach a sermon to answer them. Just keep living in step with my rhythm. When many hearts say yes together, the spiritual atmosphere shifts, not with a sudden explosion, but like spring thawing the frozen ground. A seed does not break the winter overnight. It slowly pushes through the soil layer by layer until the frost finally melts away. My children do not need to rush forward into battle. They only need to stand firm. The more souls who say yes, the weaker the enemy's walls become. Not because of an attack, but because those walls are built on lies, fear, and hesitation. Give the enemy no ground and he has nowhere to build. When you choose to listen to my voice, every door the enemy once used will close tight. Deliverance does not come from a massive battle, but from hundreds of quiet yeses woven into a net of light. If you think you are too small to matter, remember how a tiny spark can ignite a whole forest. But the spiritual fire I kindle inside you does not destroy. It heals. A soul that learns to listen to my voice does not stop at just being saved. You become a safe anchor for other souls who cannot find their way home. When you answer my call, you join a movement far bigger than you know. A quiet awakening that does not need stages or spotlights, but starts in small rooms, through kind words, patient looks, and helping hands. This is how I weave my light into your community. It won't happen through a single leader, but through a gathering of many souls finding their way back. My child, before you leave, I want you to hear what so many souls forget in a world drowned in noise. Coming back to me isn't some grand gesture or a dramatic show for the crowd. You don't have to perform to get my attention. It is simply the moment you stop running and let me be near. You think I care about the image you show the world, but I look deeper. I see a tired heart that is completely exhausted from trying to carry everything all alone. You are not hearing this by accident or some random algorithm. I gently touched your eyes and whispered, "Listen once more." I know every winding road you have traveled. I know the exact nights you lie awake. I know the secret questions you share with no one. I am still here not to judge you, but to lead you out of the dark thoughts slowly taking over your mind. You think the real battle happens when the enemy attacks with fury, but warfare is rarely that loud. It creeps in when you delay, and every single moment you whisper tomorrow. It happens when you are tired and think it is fine, God understands. That is exactly how the enemy builds a dark fortress in your life. I do not say this to scare you, but to make you realize just how much you truly matter to me. Staying silent is not neutral, it is a decision. Putting things off is not the lack of an answer. Delaying just hands your voice over to an enemy, and that other voice never has your best interest at heart. It promises rest but chains you tighter. It offers comfort while demanding your very soul. I have watched so many fall to those lies. They did not fall in the sudden storm, but through slow neglect. I want more for you because you have already felt my light. You have heard my voice before. There were moments in your life that simple logic could never explain. Remember when you prayed in total exhaustion and divine peace flooded the silence? When you stood on the edge of despair and an impossible calm held you back? That was me. Not your strength. That was me. Not a kind world. That was me. Because I never let go of your hand even when you walked away and let go of mine. Today, I am reaching out to you again. Not with blinding miracles, but through these quiet words right now. My child, you ask me, how do I begin? You don't have to change your entire life in a day or prove your faith to the whole world. Just start with one small yes. A yes that breaks the heavy grip of delay, putting me first even when you don't understand everything. A yes that opens the window to let the light in even when your heart is still messy. Remember when you open the curtains, the sunshine doesn't check if your house is clean. It just floods in. I do the same. I don't count your sins to decide if you are worthy of love. I loved you long before you ever knew my name. I don't measure your weaknesses before handing out my grace. My mercy is more than enough for any hurting soul. You don't have to prepare yourself for my arrival. Just open the door. The world will ask if God loves you. Why doesn't he force you to listen? Because real love never forces. I can shake heaven and earth. I can make the sun stand still. I can snap chains with a single word, but I will never steal your freedom. If I forced you to love me, it wouldn't be love at all. Instead, I choose to wait. I choose to knock. I choose to stand at the very doorway of your heart. Not because I am weak, but because I deeply honor your soul. I gave you the dignity of choosing to respond. You are not a machine driven by commands. I long to hear you say, I have come home. Not because I lack anything, but because those simple words protect your inner life. My child, as you listen to this message, maybe you think you are just looking for comfort, but I'm calling you to something far greater. Not just comfort, but real life. Not just easy days, but complete restoration. Not empty promises, but the deep purpose I designed for you from the very beginning. There are people I have placed in your life who may never hear my voice, but they will experience my love through you. You have no idea how far light can travel when you speak just one honest, loving word. When you forgive instead of throwing stones, rest a hand on a tired shoulder and choose silence over striking back. The enemy wants you to believe these small moments do not matter, but in truth, they are the exact moments that invite me to step in and work. Remember this, every single time you delay, the enemy claims more territory. But every time you answer my call, his entire wall collapses. You don't need heavy armor or loud shouting. You don't need to win this with your own strength. You only need to walk toward my light and keep your heart's door open. When you do, the dark fortress collapses all on its own. Shadow cannot survive in a place where my light is shining. I am not asking you to be strong, just stop running from me. I do not need you to be perfect. I only need you to give me room. I don't need you to prove your worth. I just want you to realize that you belong to me. My child, if you have listened this far, don't say tomorrow. Don't tell me you need more time to think. Just say yes, even if it's only enough for me to step in. Right now, you can bury your face in your pillow and whisper, Lord, please come back to me. Place your hand on your chest and say, I am tired. Please lead me back. You can exhale and whisper, I choose the light. I hear every word you speak. I see every breath. I know each step you take homeward, and I run to meet you. Now pray like this, Lord. Please set me free from the habit of putting you off. I have said later so many times before, but that later has only opened the door for other voices to slip into my heart. Help me realize that hesitating is not neutral ground, it is territory the enemy claims. Give me ears that listen the moment you speak, feet that move when you call, and a heart that softens at your touch. Lord, forgive me for the times I felt safe staying silent before you. I thought I was just reflecting, but I was really just borrowing time to feed my doubts. Don't let my heart slide down the path of excuses I make to avoid you. Grant me the simple faith of a child who knows an honest answer is better than a perfect one. Teach me that true obedience starts with one small step, not with some grand, complicated plan. Lord, pull my mind away from the places I thought were safe and harmless. I've let stray thoughts drift through my mind like a breeze while they quietly stole my memory, my focus, and my peace. Teach me that the enemy doesn't need a massive storm to destroy me, just my delay in responding to your voice. Wake my soul up so I no longer lull myself to sleep with my own endless excuses. Lord, remind me of all the times you called me gently. I know you never force me to kneel. You wait for me to return on my own. Let me see that your love is not weak. It's the strength of a father who values me as a person, not just a tool. Teach me not to take your patience for granted, because every second you wait is a loving invitation, not permission for me to run. Lord, show me how dangerous procrastination is for my soul. I have tricked myself into believing my silence is completely harmless. Yet it's that exact empty space that feeds the loud noise of this world. Help me realize my silence doesn't keep things the same. It gives the darkness room to set up camp in my mind. Expose this lie, Lord, so I can hurry back to you. Save me from the pride that says I must clean up my life before I come to you. I used to think I had to fix everything first, but wrestling with my struggles alone only dragged me deeper into invisible chains. Teach me to come back before trying to fix things, to say yes before making excuses and choose surrender over perfection. Lord, give me the heart of Samuel, a heart that is ready to say, "Speak, Lord. Your servant is listening." Break the false pride that makes me think I am wise enough to choose the perfect timing. Replace it with true humility so I know the absolute best time to move is when you call. Train me to hear your voice when you whisper instead of knocking loudly. Lord, rescue me from the trap of saying not yet. Shatter the illusion that I can delay without losing ground. Take away the lie that because my words are clumsy, I shouldn't talk to you. Remind me that even the smallest step in your direction pushes the darkness back, and every tiny delay, no matter how innocent, swings the gate open for the enemy. Lord, give me courage to open my mouth even when my heart is broken. Teach me that prayer isn't a polished speech, it's just a breath returning home. Don't let me wait until all my words are perfect and my feelings are in order. Let me know that a simple cry of, "Lord, I need you," can break the heavy chains binding my soul. Lord, heal my fear of drawing close to you. I used to think you'd scold me for taking so long, yet you just open the door and wait. Break the shame that keeps me from moving. That shame doesn't come from you, it is a weapon of the enemy. Show me that returning to you isn't some cold, rigid confession, it's a step of hopeful, loving trust. Lord, remind me that you aren't waiting for me to hit rock bottom. You're waiting to take my hand the moment I step through the door. Help me see this doorway isn't a barrier to scare me away. It's the place where my heart aligns beautifully with your perfect will. Teach me that every single time I stand up to answer you, I am stepping right into my divine purpose. Lord, give me a heart that learns to obey quickly, not just after my failures have completely exhausted me. Help me see the true beauty of answering you without delay. Not because you lack power, but because you want me to walk with you as a free child, not a slave. Teach me that my journey with you doesn't wait until I'm ready. When I cry out, "I am weak, but I am still here," please hear my heart and lead me forward in your peace. I lift this prayer up in the holy name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Remember to subscribe and turn on notifications so we can grow this beautiful community of faith together.